The year is 1502. In a small inn near the hot springs of Hakone, an 81-year-old man is dying. He owns no land. He holds no rank. He has no castle, no army, no family name worth recording. By every rule of his violent century, he is nobody. Yet the students kneeling at his bedside have traveled from across a country at war to be here. Warlords who burned each other's cities carried his letters like passports. For 50 years, every army in Japan let this man walk through its lines, unarmed. This is the story of Sogi, the wandering poet who outlived the age of the samurai. If you have followed this series, you know the world Sogi was born into. In the East, deputies like Uesugi Norizane were destroyed by their own loyalty. Stewards like Otodoken held provinces together until their masters killed them for it. And in 1467, the center itself collapsed. The Onin War turned Kyoto, the capital, into a battlefield for 10 years. The age the world calls Sengoku had begun. In the middle of all this, the most valuable social skill in Japan was, of all things, a poetry game. It was called renga, linked verse. One person opens with 3 lines, the next person adds 2, then 3 again, passing around the room, sometimes for 100 verses. Part art, part conversation, part competitive sport. Warlords played it in their camps the night before battles. Monks, merchants, and killers sat in the same circle, bound by the same rules. And a renga master, the referee, teacher, and star of that circle, could sit anywhere. Sogi was born in 1421, so low in the social order that historians still argue about who his parents even were. In an age obsessed with bloodline, that should have been a life sentence. He turned it into a license. A poor boy with no family name had exactly one route upward in medieval Japan, the robes of a monk. Sogi took it. But the temple was never the destination. It was the passport. He learned the classics in Kyoto. And then, in his 40s, he did something almost nobody with talent did. He left the capital and went east, into the war zones of the Kanto, the land of Norizane's tragedy and Doken's campaigns. While court poets clung to the burning capital, Sogi collected teachers, students, and allies in the provinces everyone else feared. Tradition even places him at Edo Castle in the poetry gatherings of Otodoken himself, the steward we met in our last episode, the builder of Tokyo, and the man who would outlive him in the same room, passing verses. Then came the masterstroke. An aging warrior scholar named Tono Tsuneyori held something unique. The Kokin Denju, the secret oral teachings of Japan's founding poetry anthology, passed person to person like a crown jewel. Sogi studied under him for years and received the transmission. Understand what that meant. A man with no bloodline now carried, in his memory alone, a cultural treasure that emperors and shoguns wanted access to. He owned nothing and held a monopoly. Here's how the business worked. Every warlord in Japan had the same insecurity. Swords could take a province, but they could not make you legitimate. Culture could. Hosting a famous master, receiving his teachings, having your verses corrected by him, that was proof you were a lord, not a bandit. So Sogi walked. Yamaguchi in the far west, Echigo in the snow country, Kyushu in the south, the eastern plains. He crossed active battle lines to get there, and both sides let him pass, because a renga master belonged to no one, threatened no one, and might sit in your circle next. His neutrality was his armor. His fees were lodging, protection, gifts, and introductions. His supply chain was a network of students in every domain in Japan, one of the finest address books the country had ever seen. In 1488, at the shrine of Menace, he sat with 2 of his students and composed 100 linked verses in honor of a long-dead emperor. That work, the Manase Sangen, is still studied 5 centuries later as the summit of the entire art form, a masterpiece with 3 authors. The Freelancer's Monument is, fittingly, a collaboration. Now set the 3 men of this trilogy side by side. Uesugi Norizane had rank, and the rank crushed him between 2 masters. Otodoken had a lord, and the lord had him murdered in a bathhouse. Sogi had no master to betray him, no castle to besiege, no land to confiscate. When a city burned, he grieved and walked to the next one. His entire estate traveled with him, a memory full of classics, a brush, and 500 living students. The age of wars kept taking things from everyone. From Sogi there was nothing to take. He kept walking into his 80s. Kyoto to the East Country, 7 days' journey at a time, an old man on mountain roads that soldiers hesitated to use. In the summer of 1502, on yet another journey, his strength finally gave out at the foot of the Hakone Pass. His student Socho recorded the scene. The master died on the road, mid-journey, mid-conversation about poetry, and was buried by his students, not his ancestors. By every measure his century used, land, blood, title, Sogi died with nothing. He simply kept the only things that century could not burn. 2 centuries later, Japan's most beloved poet, Basho, set out on his own famous journeys, and named Sogi as the traveler whose footsteps he was following. The road from medieval linked verse leads directly to haiku, and from haiku to how the world reads Japan today. Norizan saved the books. Doken built the city. Sogi proved a third answer to the century's question of what survives: skill that travels and people who want you alive. In an age when everything you owned could be burned, the safest wealth was the kind you carried in your head. That was true in 1502. Decide for yourself how true it is now. If you enjoyed this trilogy, subscribe. Forgotten Japan tells the stories that the famous tales of samurai and shoguns leave out. Next time, we go back a century earlier, to the general who won every war for his masters and taught Japan that winning is the most dangerous thing a servant can do.